Hi friends, welcome back to the channel for We Talk Mental Health. My name is Karen, as always, and today we're going to talk a little bit about me. I put a poll out on Twitter a week ago, kind of asking people what type of videos they wanted to see from We Talk, and people wanted to know about my own battles and my own struggles with mental health problems and with mental illness. It was never my intention when I started this channel to talk about me, because I want We Talk to be about advocacy and about, education and putting information out there that helps people understand what people go through on a daily basis when they're living with mental illness. It was never supposed to be about, and I don't want it to be about, me at all. So it's a little bit hard for me to talk about myself, I think, as it is for a lot of people, because I'm a therapist, I'm a social worker, and I've spent my entire life wanting to help other people, and I think that sometimes I take a back seat, which is something that I'm trying to be better about, and which is why I am doing this video. It's important to kind of talk about some of the things that I've lived with. So we're gonna do it, and hopefully I don't ramble, but I tend to do that, and I think that if you've watched any videos up until this point, you would know that. So let's just jump into it, shall we? I've spent a lot of time in school, and I've spent a lot of my adult life learning about mental illness, and I am not advocating for self-diagnosis in any way, shape, or form. I understand my symptoms, I understand my triggers. I work to continue to understand them because, it's never something that stays kind of linear. They fluctuate. Different things can come up and cause different reactions. But I've never actually been diagnosed. I've never been to a therapist. And, well, I take that back. I have been to a therapist. I have been to a therapist. But I had a hard time in session because of my profession, and I just don't think it was a great fit, so I just stopped going. Hi, welcome to most people living with a mental illness. I also don't necessarily think that I have a mental illness that is comparable to other people's. And I'm not saying that, the things that I don't live with aren't valid. I'm just saying that I think that, I do a pretty good job of managing them, and they've never gotten to a point where it's debilitating for me. But I think that that's because I work really hard to, take care of myself and use mindfulness a lot to kind of figure out where I'm at and what's wrong and how I can fix it. So, at this point in my life, there have been very few times where my mental illness has been debilitating. I think that the worst that it was when I was a teenager and I couldn't really cope with things. I had a brief history of self-harm. It's not something that I've ever really talked about until right now. So I am super emotional with a lot of different things. So I think that, my emotional regulation has always been something that I've struggled with. I can't have an argument without crying, and I'm not saying that that's, a mental illness. I'm just, kind of talking about the things that I struggle with. It's never been debilitating enough for me to kind of feel like I needed to seek treatment. And I've lived with anxiety for a long time, but again, there have been very few instances where it's gotten that bad, where I felt like I've needed to seek treatment. And I don't like talking about it because I feel like people will think that I'm condescending or that I'm full of shit and that I'm, it's like a veteran going to a veteran because they understand what they're going through in terms of therapy. So I don't talk about it because I don't want people to think that I don't understand what it is that they're going through, and that I've never experienced like a legitimate diagnosed mental illness. So I feel like people will look at me and be like, well, you're a fraud. And I struggle with that because I think that it's something that I've been working on. I might cry. It's something that I've been working on because, you know, even though my battles aren't debilitating and I can still function and I can still work, it doesn't mean that they're not there. And I think a lot of people live with kind of high functioning mental illnesses, you know, high functioning anxiety and high functioning depression, where they're still struggling with things and they're still battling, you know, a lot, but they can still function and they can still go to work. So I kind of just wanted to preface this whole video with that because I do understand. You know, I live with my own shit, and I've had periods where things have gotten really hard, but I think most of the time I do a pretty good job of managing them. But I also think that maybe I don't always take them as seriously as I should, because I think that I should be able to just work through it and fix myself, because I do what I do every day. So almost 4 years ago, my daughter was born. She was 8 weeks early. She was 4 pounds, 3 ounces, 17 inches long, and we were in the NICU and the continuing care unit at Maine Medical Center for 25 days. I did a really good job of hiding it at the time, and this is where I kind of, you know, I don't advocate for self-diagnosis, but like in hindsight, looking back, I definitely think that I was battling postpartum depression, and because I feel very guilty that she was so early. It was a high-risk pregnancy from the beginning because of my anatomy, which, like, we don't need to get into that. But she basically ran out of room, and she, you know, is to this day very stubborn and strong-willed, and decided that she was done cooking, and she was not, in fact. But we were very lucky that she came out with no medical concerns, and, you know, we got to go home, and you would never know that she was preemie at this point. Like, she caught up so quickly in terms of like her height and her weight, and developmentally she's exactly where she should be. I think that she might have some sort of sensory kind of stuff, but I also think that some of it's probably age appropriate. But I feel a lot of guilt. I lived in that room with her for 25 days. I slept there, I ate there, I didn't go home, I refused to go home, because I was the reason that this little girl wasn't where she needed to be. It's obviously still something that I deal with today, and my husband and I have talked about having more kids, but I can't, because it was a lot for the whole family, and emotionally I was in a very dark place during her first, 6 weeks of life. And I know that, that first day back to work for all moms after they have a baby is hell and it's torture. For me, it was like ripping my soul out of my body, and it was, I am the reason that she was so susceptible to so many things, because she was so early and I should be protecting her, and I still feel a lot of guilt. And when I think about it, I, obviously get emotional, but it's selfish, I think, a little bit. My husband and I have been very open about this topic, and we've had lots of conversations, and he, understands that, like, my mental well-being is more important to him. So he doesn't think that it's selfish, but I think that it's selfish that I don't want to give him another biological child, because I don't think that I'll be able to handle that again. Being in that place, being in that hole, was a lot. And I still deal with it every day, a little. And this is why I struggle with talking about it a little bit, because in the grand scheme of things, I've posted about it on WeTalk a few times, that your feelings and your experiences are valid, and they're not any more or less valid than anybody else's. But for me, like, that feels minimal compared to some things that I've heard from others and worked through with others in a session. And I have my own battles. Should I be in therapy? Probably. But I've also, dealt with anxiety for a long time, and it's never gotten to the point where it's debilitating, but it sometimes gets in the way of me doing things that I really would like to do, like all of the what ifs and the fear of failing, and it's paused this giant dream that I have at my fingertips, and this business plan that I'm working on, and it's the reason why I haven't moved forward with it, because I'm terrified to fail. And change is really hard for me. I get a lot of anxiety when there's things like I don't do well with things not being planned. And I oftentimes will be like, oh no, it's fine, I understand. And I do, like, the rational part of me understands, but it just fucks me all up. Inside my head, I just struggle. And I'm trying to be better about it. It's a constant work in progress for me. Just like it is for everybody. I don't ever want it to be about me. It's just not who I am. It's not in my bones. It's always about helping other people. I can deal with my own stuff. I should be able to, is kind of my mindset. But it's not always the case, and I'm trying to work towards that. So hopefully, while I'm editing this, I don't cut anything out, because here I am talking about all of these things inside of my head, and the back of my head is saying, people are going to think that you just want attention. People aren't going to take you seriously. People are going to think that you're a fraud and that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. So it's real. It's there, and I get it. I hope that maybe this helps somebody. I hope that somebody can relate and know that, even if you live with anxiety or, have had depressive episodes throughout your life, that it's still valid. Even if it's not debilitating, even if it's not it's still valid. So if you have any other questions, if there's anything else that you would like to know about me, I'm kind of, making it a goal of mine to be a little bit more open and honest about myself. I've kind of been putting the information out there on WeTalk, just general and not personal. So I'm trying to kind of balance that out a little bit. If you like the video, please hit the thumbs up button and please subscribe. If you would like to see a specific video, please let me know in the comments, and I'll put all of the links to the social media in the description below. It'd be really cool if you followed me and WeTalk, so that we can all get to know each other and be one happy mental health community. I am sorry that WeTalk hasn't been super active this past week. It's been a very draining week for me. Work has taken a lot out of me emotionally and mentally, so I've been trying to make sure that I'm doing the best I can to take care of myself. So it's all a balance. But I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you listening, and I just really appreciate you in general, who you are as a person, and I love you all. I think you're great. I will see you next week.